You know, there's like at least 3, maybe even 4 ways of pulling honey that I can think of. And just in case you're wondering what I mean when I say pulling honey, when I was in the commercial industry, that's what they called when we go out and take boxes of honey off the bees. They didn't say harvest, which is exactly what it is, but we went out and we pulled honey that day. So today we're going to be pulling honey off of this colony and this tall one over here, this tower. Those 2 hives are one of my client's colonies. They got too heavy during the flow, too quick before he had the location ready for me to move the bees to. So after I pull the honey on these, I'll be relocating those. But today with you guys, I thought I would just bring you along and show you one of the most basic and easy ways to pull honey and what conditions I look for before I do it so that the bees aren't so pissy. So if that interests you, you should definitely stick around. So there's a few things I make sure of before I actually start pulling honey. The first one is, you guys probably notice that I'm in the shade right now. And that's fine, the shade is great. It makes working for you and I way easier. But it's a cool morning and it hasn't warmed up yet. So that mixture of shade and cool is not something I like to do, mix when it comes to pulling honey. It means, hey, there goes a hawk, cool. Not a squirrel. It means that the bees will be a little more pissy if I just start breaking into them. And plus, if you're using fume boards, you need the sun in order to really activate the fume on the fume pads to get the fumes working on the bees. It does not work in the shade very well at all. Your bees will just never leave the box. But we're not using fume pads today. We're not using escape boards. We're just going to be doing the take off a box and brush the bees off of the frame method. And there's actually a little bit more to that than what you may know. So once this colony is in the sun and the one down there on the hill, whichever one gets in the sun first, I'll start pulling honey on that one and I'll bring you back then, which is going to be like right. So as you can see, we're just starting to get into the sunlight here and it's warmed up. So I think I'm going to make a call. It's a good time to start since it's still a little bit cool. Pulling honey is some of the hottest work you can do in beekeeping. When I did it in Florida, it was always in the heat of the day and with a stupid jacket on. So before I light a smoker and pop this thing open and we start taking frames of honey, a few things that I like to consider first is I like to back my truck up so that I have easy access to it to load my boxes of honey on. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so there we go. I've got a nice path here and around to the back of the truck, got the tailgate down. Boxes of honey get heavy. And so wherever you're taking them, try to make it the shortest distance possible and make sure that the path from the hive to where you're going doesn't have any trip hazards. I've weeded it in here, although it doesn't look like it. There's also some kudzu vines that can trip me up sometimes. I make sure that those are out of the way. And so now that I've got everything ready, I can go ahead and light a smoker and start popping boxes, brushing bees, and pulling honey. So when it comes to this method of pulling honey, when you're just brushing bees off of the frames, you only need a few things. Smoker, because you're going to have the hive open a little while. Usually, sometimes it can be a little bit longer than an actual inspection. You're going to need yourself a hive tool and a bee brush, and ideally an empty box, whether you're pulling deep frames of honey, which I've done, or medium frames or shallows. You need an empty box to put these frames one at a time into. Now what happens if you don't have an extra box? Glad you asked, because that's what we're going to be doing today. I'll show you how to handle it when you don't have a box to put those frames directly into. All right, pop in our quilting box, a little bit of smoke. Looking over here, I can see some capped honey. You guys will see it soon. But first, to make this easier, since I'm standing on a downhill slope, we're going to pop this box off. Now I've got 5 stuck frames here. That does not help what I'm doing. Oh, come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, this is really heavy. Oh, gosh. All right, let's get busy. Okay, so where we're at right now, we're at the end of a flow, obviously. It's been over for a little over a week. These bees have been ripening the honey. Here's some open nectar, a little bit of capped on this side. For now, I don't plan on taking this. We'll see how it works out. And in the meantime, I'm going to stack this on end and lean it against the back of the colony because I don't have a box to start sticking things into. Here's one that they're still working on capping. I'm going to stack this for now. Again, not sure I really want to take that frame yet. Now we're getting into the more full frames where the majority of this stuff is capped. I want to take this one. And some of you might be thinking, well, it's not all the way capped. But you know what? We took boxes like this on time in Florida all the time. The honey moisture works out. It evens out, it averages, and that's mostly a big deal when you're selling direct to consumers or a honey bottler, because they'll dock you money if the moisture is too high. Now, you want to brush from the bottom bar. I've got this frame upside down. You want to brush from the bottom bar towards the top bar because the way that the comb is angled. If we do it this way, we're more likely to injure bees' legs as they get caught in the cells. So I like to do this over the box and get those bees back into the colony instead of just on the ground or something like that, because I'm not using the excluder. I don't know where the queen is. She could be up here, so I keep an eye on her. Keep an eye for her. Now this actually has eggs and larvae in it in this small section. So the problem with that now is that I don't want to take this, and that's why you would use an excluder. But if you don't want to use an excluder like me, what I'll end up doing is going into this box, finding a frame of honey and trading it out for this, moving this brood into here and honey to take to the honey house. So for now, I'm going to put that in the shade so that that larva doesn't get too warm, and I can find a replacement frame. So we're going to dig into this one. This is going to be our replacement frame, mostly capped. And you notice I like to shake as many bees off first as I can. Then I'll brush what's left. If I don't get them all, not a big deal. But I get the majority of the bees, and a lot of them will fly out while we're just standing here doing our work. All right, I'm not going to put the brood in yet because I might have more brood to exchange. So let's find out. All right, here we've got a mostly capped frame of honey. So I don't anticipate finding much more brood, if any at all. So, brush. That one's good. So now I've got 2 frames in my honey box ready to take back. Going to my third. Shake. And I could leave this on probably for another week and they would cap more of it. But I'm not going to. I just brushed a bee down my sleeve. Oh! One of the issues, like this is an easy way to pull honey, but it's also time consuming and it increases the chances of you dropping a frame in the dirt or on the boards here and uncapping the honey and getting a drippy mess everywhere. Now here we've got a frame of capped brood, and actually there's all 3 stages. So I'm going to do a quick glance for the queen. I don't see her, but I'm still going to shake the bees in case she's on there. Set this to the side, pull a replacement frame. Here's a great example of a frame that's ready to go. Ideally, they would all look like this. Part of the reason I'm not giving them more time is because we have another flow coming very soon. Our sourwood flow. I need to get these boxes back on. They need to be extracted back on in time for that. So I'm partly working against the clock, the seasonal clock. All right, there's my replacement frame. Let's see if we're going to need another one. If there's any brood on this frame here. Open nectar, capped, a lot of open, no brood. That's good. But even though there's no brood on this, and a lot of this is open nectar, hardly any of it's capped, I could also come up with a replacement frame for this one. I wouldn't be taking away from their food source because there's plenty of nectar on that replacement frame there. But now I'm starting to get into brood. So I've got to put this one back and go to the other side of the box where there's more likely going to be only honey and no brood, and then start looking from there. The easiest way to pull honey in my experience is to use a fume board, because you just put it on, let the sun do its thing, come back a few minutes later, check and see if the bees are out of that box, and if they are, you just pull the honey box, put it on the truck, or whatever you're doing. So we do have a lot of honey here. We've got a lot of pollen too. That pollen will stay in the frame during the extraction process, so it's not like it'll fall out or anything. So they will be getting that back. I just brushed bees right into my honey box, not really thinking more about what I'm saying than what I'm doing. Woo! Okay. That's going to be a honey frame. This is going to be a frame we put back. I'm just going to put this one on the outside since there's no brood on it. Bring this one in. We've got 2 more frames to check in this box. And because they're outside frames, there's a lot less chance of them being capped, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this straight right there. This one, very much more light. They haven't even touched this side of the frame. Let's see if we can do one more replacement frame. This brood? Yep, it's brood. Can't do any more replacement frames. That's okay. So I'm going to give them this. Hold up. We still got to put the brood back. Kind of need. I have 2 frames of brood and I've only got 1 spot in here. So I got to make a call. I'm going to take this frame. The brood is more important putting back to me. So I'm going to move this honey frame out so that my brood frame is in with the rest of the brood. This is brood here, and there's only a small patch of brood on this, so I'm going to face it towards the inside of the box and the honey towards the outside of the box, and go ahead and just fill my box with the frames that I have left. Just because I'm taking a frame like this doesn't mean I have to extract it. I can just leave it alone, extract these other fat frames of honey, put this back in with the wet comb, put the wet super back on them for sourwood, and I'm done. All right, so now the bees are buzzing. They don't like all this change and what's going on. I'm leaving them in a pretty full box. In other words, they don't have much room to grow up into. So it means I need to get this extracted ideally today and get it back on them either later today or tomorrow at the latest. That way they don't feel like they're being cramped. The adult density isn't so high that the queen's pheromone dispersion is going to be lowered. So now it's time to pick this up, take it to the truck. Ugh. Okay, so now that I've pulled that off, ideally I would have an empty super to put back on them, one withdrawn comb. If I had some bare plastic I could give them, I wouldn't just put that box straight up bare plastic on top. I would pull up some bridge frames, some comb that's already drawn, probably not brood. I'd probably do honey, pull it up, put it in the center of that box, checkerboard 2 of the frames from that box down into this one, so that the bees feel like they've got a reason to come up into those resources that are already familiar. Instead of an empty box, it seems like just more work, a ceiling that stops them. So for now, since I don't have anything, I'm going to do it the way I told you guys, and that's just to get this honey box extracted as quickly as I can. So in the meantime, their quilting box back on, get them out of the heat beaten down in the top of the hive, and let them settle back in again. Now that colony only had almost one box, not an entire box of honey to contribute. This one's going to have at least 2, maybe 3. And what I may find when I get into this one, by the time I'm done, I may have a super that I can go ahead and give to this colony down here on the hill and not worry about getting the honey in the back of the truck here extracted so quickly, you know, so that these bees have some room. So distributing resources throughout the apiary is a good way to manage your apiary as a unit, as a network, I have found, instead of just individual colonies needing help. So that's where we're at. Before my equipment starts to die, I'm going to thank you guys for joining me in this video. I will see you in the next. Happy harvests. Hive Doctor out.